An insider at the Fed has just exposed why the globalist attack on America completely failed. As America's embracing Bitcoin, the globalists centered out of Europe are moving towards implementing a CBDC. But what does this all mean for Bitcoin? Make sure you pay very close attention to every detail in this clip because you don't want to miss it.
The euro-dollar market was born in the 1950s. And there was some discussion in the 1960s as to whether the Fed should try to get some sort of control over it. And frankly, it sounds like they all just never agreed on whether to get control over it. And it was small enough that they could just ignore it. Yeah. And then it just grew. And now it's bigger than the onshore US dollar market. So that's the history. There are a lot of US dollar transactions that never touch U.S. banks and never go through the United States, but they're using the dollar as the intermediary currency. And so there are a lot of folks who would look at the world today and say, we're not on a dollar standard, we're on a euro dollar standard because there's more volume in U.S. dollars happening outside of the domestic U.S. market. And so who controls the euro dollar? To your point, it's the City of London. And that's not a conspiracy theory. It's easy to point to why the interest rate on dollars was set under what's called LIBOR, the London Interbank Offer Rate. And the panel of LIBOR setting banks was dominated by London banks. It had the London office of JP Morgan as the sole representative of the U.S. banking market. So who controlled the most important interest rate for the U.S. dollar market? London. And so therefore, London really actually controlled the U.S. economy.
Amazing.
Right. It was staring us in the face, sitting in plain sight. Yeah. But I salute the Fed for bringing that control back onto the United States. There was a multi-year process to take LIBOR down. Some of you might be familiar with the LIBOR pricing scandal. LIBOR was price fixed. And there were big London banks that paid big fines and fired their fixed income traders for price fixing LIBOR to try to make it seem like it was more favorable to them than it actually was. And so what happened is the market migrated to what's called SOFR, the Secured Overnight Funding Rate. That is set in the United States, and the security, it's secured. That's why that's the S in SOFR. It's secured by U.S. Treasuries. So it is actually a secured U.S. Treasury borrowing rate. Therefore, the U.S. actually controls it. It's not some, panel of 14 random fixed income traders in London, and the U.S. didn't have any control over them. Now, and that was an unsecured market as well, unsecured rate, therefore more volatile. So we've brought it onshore, it's secured, and it's set in the United States. So the U.S. now doesn't need London anymore. Tom was the one who made me realize all that. It was one of those aha moments of, wow, you're right. London actually sets the most important interest rate that underscores most of the financial markets, and that was LIBOR. And the last LIBOR futures contract matured March 31st. So we're out. Wow. LIBOR is gone. But we've just had the last vestige of it disappear.
Wow, Europe is cooked. But anyway, I'm not here alone. I want to introduce my co-host, Optimus Fields. You guys know him, you love him. He's here every day, and he's helping me be co-host today. And we also have our amazing guest, Kent Halliburton, right? Sorry, did I say that right?
Yeah, Kent Halliburton.
The CEO of SAS Mining. Welcome to the show, Kent.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Good to have you on here the first time here, Sophie.
Thank you. I'm going through a trial by fire, so bear with me, guys. Anyway, let's get into the source material of this clip. So remember that Christine Lagarde has been wanting to implement a CBDC for a very long time now. And so Wide Awake Media reported the European Union plans to introduce its central bank digital currency, the digital euro, in October of this year. Wow, that's very soon. Christine Lagarde, Opti's ex-girlfriend, head of the European Central Bank, says it is piloted on a fairly large scale in China, where it is of use and of service to all citizens. but mainly the government. Like, let's be so for real. So it is not something that is good for the elite or good for the young or is good for some versus others. If it is well done and if it is well implemented, it would be of service to all citizens. CBDCs not only enable governments and central banks to track who spends what, where, and when. They are programmable, allowing money to be restricted for specific uses, the imposition of expiry dates, and the ability to limit or freeze spending based on the user behavior or location. Once combined with digital ID, facial recognition, social credit scores, and carbon allowances, CBDCs facilitate totalitarian control on unprecedented scale. I don't think it was that much of a hyperbole when Nico tweeted Bitcoin or slavery. There's a reason he tweets this every day, because it's actually coming to a European city near you in October. Like I said, Europe is cooked. So Opti, what do you have to say about this? You know, I'm not a macroeconomics expert. I'm just a girl, and you're an expert in Christine Lagarde. So, like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, very interesting to just see in general. And obviously, shouts out to Caitlin Long. She has been doing incredible work. If you guys aren't familiar with Caitlin Long, she tried to get the first fully reserved bank a couple of years ago, obviously the first fully reserved Bitcoin bank, and the Fed literally shut her out. They were like, yep, this is not going to work. They attacked her. They stopped this from happening. And she's like, look, I am literally overqualified for what you're recommending for a normal bank. And they absolutely nuked it. And she's been on a warpath ever since. Obviously, a really great Bitcoiner. She's doing incredible work. And Nico just did an interview with her last night. And I didn't hear her side of the conversation, but he was like, she went hard. So that's going to drop soon. I'm sure it's going to be a continuation of what this clip was about. But anyway, kind of talking about what's going on here. So again, the coincidences here are very interesting. Of course, one, we've all seen what Trump has been doing with Bitcoin and embracing Bitcoin and saying, hey, you know, we're going to be the Bitcoin superpower of the world. And now we've all seen the very public feud with Jerome Powell. But an interesting little wrinkle here is Scott Bessent and Jerome Powell literally have a lunch every single Monday. Sometimes at the Treasury, sometimes at the Fed. Apparently, the Fed has a nicer breakfast because they have unlimited money to print and they don't care about money. So they have a nice, good breakfast. Scott Bessent likes the Fed breakfast better. So there is a little bit of key fob going on here. And if you don't know that term, it's kind of like WWE wrestling. You know, there's a heel, there's the hero, and it does seem like publicly there's a feud, but privately they might be more symbiotic than most people really understand what's going on here. And so as Soph was kind of saying, and I was kind of telling her this morning, like maybe Jerome Powell isn't the bad guy we think he is. And also, like, I know Trump's in a lot of hot water recently, especially in the last couple of weeks, but it does seem like there might be kind of some political, economic kind of behind the scenes move happening, as Caitlin Long was saying, to separate us from the City of London. And if you don't understand or know what the City of London is, the significance of it, they're basically the heart of the financial world here. Most of everything comes out of the City of London. And as Tom Luongo has been saying for a long time, that's the heart of the globalists, World Economic Forum, Davos crowd. That's the heart of the beast here. And so it is very interesting that Caitlin Long did mention Tom Luongo in that clip. In general, she obviously is like that. It was Tom who kind of hit me to this. And you guys know I've been talking about Tom Luongo on the show for a while. I think it has been kind of spot on here for a while. And it took me a while to kind of wrap my head around this. Actually, one of my friends, also Phil, I forget what his Twitter name is. Phil, a boy named Sue, that's what it used to be. He's been a Tom Luongo acolyte. He loves Tom Luongo. He's been kind of I would say a little cynical and critical of the trust the plan MAGA type people. And he's like, or rather the people that are mad at Trump right now. He's like, guys, You don't see what's going on behind the scenes. This is actually good for the US, and I think further would be good for everyone around the world because, as you know, as Nico's been saying, it's Bitcoiner slavery. If literally the heart of the beast is getting defunded right now because they can't manipulate the interest rates in the US and kind of, gain the power of the money printer, have more interest payments, then they're going to slowly but surely go bankrupt. And I've been saying this on the show for a while. Everything we're seeing coming out of the European Union right now is because their back is against the wall. They understand they're losing control, and it is very interesting that their only move here, their knee-jerk reaction is, hey, we're losing control, so what should we do, Sophie? We should get more control, and we should usher in the CBDC. Now, as the joke goes, I am an expert in Christine Lagarde, apparently, and I think she kind of ratted on herself. Like, she told on herself in that very first statement, this isn't just for the elites. Well, if you're like me, anything a politician says, you know that the negative is literally the positive. So this is just for the elites, and everything we've been covering here on the show, why we're so against CBDCs, is because we know what is going to happen. Literally, they can create it out of thin air. It's going to be unrestricted fiat money. They can it's programmable. They're using the terms of the shitcoiners, the programmable money, which literally means they can cut you off. It's basically a social credit score, and it is very interesting that she particularly referenced China and is like, China's doing some good things. Maybe we should follow. And everyone else is like, wait, what? Like, no, this is not how it works. So those are my takes on that initial kind of conversation. But I do want to bring in Tom Luongo's takes here a little bit. He kind of expands on what Caitlin Long was saying here. And so we have a tweet here from Dr. Stormy Waters, and he goes, oh my God, how could anyone have seen this coming? SOFR was pushed through the last months of Trump 1.0. It's like they had been planning this since 2016. And he's got a screenshot here of wow, I'm blank. Zero Hedge. And it goes, U.S. withdrawal. ECB warns of dollar shortage. Of course, this was about a month ago, May 23rd, 2025. Literally the exact days that Caitlin Long was mentioning that SOFR ended. And then going further, you can get a couple of the highlights. The euro dollar market and the credit mechanisms outside the Federal Reserve's jurisdiction. Now, while LIBOR had been dominated by European banks and subject to interest rate manipulation, SOFR is based on actual secured repo transactions in the U.S. market, largely immune to manipulation. So, as Caitlin Long was explaining, we're bringing back the control of the dollar to the U.S. Now, of course, we're not fiat maxis here, but this has huge geopolitical and economic implications here. So, if you are taking the heart of the beast, if you're taking their main tool, which is, of course, the money printer, or rather more of like a parasitic, symbiotic relationship with the U.S., then a lot of the stuff that we've been covering here on the show, you can call them the globalists, the World Economic Forum, Davos crowd, the elites, whatever you want to call them, it seems like they are losing their main power source. And if this is the case, which it seemingly is, it is bad news for not only the European elites, but for Europeans in general. And I've been talking about this for a while. If you're in Europe, you probably want some Bitcoin. So the United States is deliberately freeing itself from the influence of European institutions that had previously defended their sovereignty through interest rates and distorted global monetary conditions. Again, we are talking about dollars here, or the euro dollar system, the debt-based fiat system that we constantly rail against. But when you see something like this play out, you know there is some crazy geopolitical economic implications happening in real time. Now, I want to read Tom Luongo's response to this. And he goes, SOFR was in pilot project starting right after Powell came in at the Fed. It was fully phased in over a 4.5-year period, culminating with 1/1/2022, where all new debt obligations in the U.S. had to be tied to SOFR and not LIBOR. Again, bringing it on shore. Yes, the banking interests in the U.S. understood the problem. They saw the threat, and they laid the foundation for the last stage of U.S. independence from colonial Europe. So, from an American perspective, I'm kind of happy about this. This sounds great. Obviously, I'm not the biggest fan of the dollar. The dollar is, the shiniest turd in the kitchen here, basically. So we are Bitcoiners at heart, but we all know that there is an implication. There is a scale here. People will eventually drop their currencies, end up in the dollar, and then all roads eventually lead to Bitcoin once they realize, hey, the dollar is no different than my local currency here. So going further, Tom Luongo writes this. when I first really went down this path, the SOFR versus LIBOR rabbit hole, how the EU kept escalating and dragging the US along, all I did was think 2 or 3 steps ahead, and it became obvious. If I didn't see it in our financial system and our gross fiscal mismanagement, I wouldn't have gone there. Seriously, listen to the latest GG&G podcast, his podcast, and it will all make much more sense. This is why I've been saying for a while that I'm a huge fan of Tom Luongo, because it does seem like he's been doing a lot of good work, and he is really giving analysis that I haven't really seen anywhere else. So huge take from Tom Luongo. It seems like he is correct. Now, again, we are a Bitcoin show. And what is very interesting about this is, one, as Tom Luongo was kind of saying, this started in Trump 1.0. It started in the first Trump presidency. Now he comes back in, and it seems like the LIBOR system is dead now. Metaphorically, of course. And even though they're fighting Jerome Powell, it seems like there is a coordinated effort right now behind the scenes to kind of manipulate the interest rates, kind of do a game of chicken with Europe right now. We do know Jerome Powell has been saying for a while, I'm not going to move interest rates. And I think what Jerome Powell is doing is he's going to keep interest rates kind of where they are because he knows that he's defunding Europe. Now, the real interesting wrinkle here is, of course, how does Bitcoin get involved in all of this? We know the U.S. is going full Bitcoin, or rather maybe full stable coins here. We know we've been hearing them talk about U.S. dollar dominance. So if you kind of read between the lines, it does seem like a lot of the geopolitical plays we're seeing right now is to kind of strengthen the dollar. And you guys know I've been talking about this on the show for a while. They publicly are saying, hey, we want a strong dollar. We want really low interest rates. But privately, it seems like they're doing kind of the opposite. They want a weaker dollar relative to everything else. They want low interest rates because then that free money is going to flow again. And if they do set up the U.S. to be the Bitcoin superpower of the world, where do you think all this excess liquidity is going to end up? I think this is going to set up a perfect storm for Bitcoin. I think the price is going to start ripping soon. As you're seeing, there's a lot of uncertainty in the system right now. People are dropping treasuries. They're doing whatever they can to prop up treasuries, hence why they're pushing for stable coins. And a lot of people just don't want fiat money anymore. It's becoming a trend now. It's become very popular to talk about even say the word fiat. You know, we had Elon Musk yesterday say fiat is Monday or over the weekend, fiat is hopeless. I'm starting a new party. It's starting to look like we've been right here as not just simply Bitcoin, but as Bitcoiners. Bitcoin is the end road here, and people are starting to wake up that there is a lot of financial engineering going on that makes them uncomfortable. And I think, like I said a minute ago, all roads lead to Bitcoin. I think all of this capital is going to come into Bitcoin, and it really kind of leads me to an interesting thing that Kent told us right before the show. You know, you're co-founder, CEO of Saz Mining. You're a Bitcoin miner, but you had an interesting story of how you had a lot of interest from European people. Is this all starting to make sense? Maybe all of these things are connected. So, Kent, what's your take on this?
Oh, I love this. So I'm learning in real time with you guys on this. So I did not know this, the SOFR LIBOR relationship or Lugano here and his takes. But what I would say is, you know, from my vantage point, it's very clear. Like, I'm a big proponent of like the sovereign individual and the fourth turning. If you've read those, what we're living through sort of makes a lot more sense and actually gives you a lot more like peace and understanding living through it. But it just, you can feel that the tectonic plates of our financial reality are shifting. And just like when they shift on planet Earth, we have earthquakes, sudden shifts of like mountains suddenly occur and lava spouts out from volcanoes. I feel like the same thing is occurring with us here. And Bitcoin is ultimately going to be the winner here because it's outside. And eventually, like, everybody's going to realize I'd rather trust this thing that is outside of anybody's control than trust anything that is within someone's control. So it's going to win by default. But to your point, Opti, like what we're seeing is, yes, Europe, like I'm a European citizen. Not many people know that, but my wife is Portuguese. I lived in Portugal for 6 years. I became a citizen. And it's one of the reasons why I live in South America now is because I could see coming down the pike things weren't going to turn out so well. Now, I think specifically Portugal is going to be fine because they got a very unique culture, and they'll wind up just figuring out ways to work around the situation. But so Europe as an idea, I think, is under stress and struggle here. The European countries individually, I think they'll make out. I mean, they've been through a lot worse. You know, the bubonic plague that destroyed 70% of the population, and I can't remember what year it was, but you know, they survived that. They're going to survive this as well. So it's not like European nations died. But what I do see happening, though, is as more control comes on place, because that's what tyrannical forces do, right? As there is more interest in trying to do something else, the tyrannical force tries to clamp down harder and harder. And that's CBDCs, right? We're getting separated. LIBOR so far. U.S. is separating. I love to see that as an American. We need our independence to have our own choice and direction and reality of where we're going to go. And frankly, it's crazy that that's even existed as long as it has. The ties to London, like, that's just disgusting. I can't believe that we've allowed ourselves to be in that position so long. So I'm glad that we've now got the independence. That's wonderful. It's likely going to lead to some better decisions for Americans. But as the CBDCs are being clamped down, I believe October is when they're supposed to roll out. We are seeing more people show up at our doorstep saying, hey, cool, like I need Bitcoin, but guess what? I want Bitcoin that's outside the banking rails. How do you do that? You got to mine it. That's the only way that you can generate fresh Bitcoin. So, you know, they're showing up on our doorstep and realizing, you know, it's pretty easy. This is just about as easy as going to Coinbase and buying Bitcoin. So why don't I just do that? And it's been fascinating to see folks are actually onboarding instead of buying Bitcoin. They're starting to mine it through us. Had a client that just joined that he's been in Bitcoin 6 weeks and decided that mining was better than buying. So, and I'm here for it. That's when I feel like we're winning because this is the way Satoshi designed the network, was for mining to be the way that Bitcoin's distributed, not buying it. And the more people that mine it, I think the healthier the network is. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. But at the end of the day, these control systems that are coming into place. I mean, Christine Lagarde, I know you're an expert, Opti, but Christine Lagarde is a convicted felon, and she is the one implementing a CBDC. And if you look at what a CBDC is, it's an open air prison, folks. Like, this is ridiculous. We have a convicted criminal telling the entire continent of Europe that they want to put an open air prison around you, and don't worry, trust us. Like, I'm sorry, the fox is in the hen house. Like, don't listen to the fox.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, so before you take it, I do want to mention something that you said, Kent, because as the chat was saying, you nailed the head. You hit the nail on the head here. Dr. Daniel Howell goes, a tectonic shift. It's the perfect description. And I know there's been a lot of like memes on Twitter right now of like the golden age and like it's here, you know, quit blackpilling. But what we are seeing is fundamentally this. There is something happening. And look, I'm not going to say that I know exactly what's happening but from my vantage point of covering the news every single day with you guys, it's exactly what Kent just said. There is this fundamental shift happening right now. Now, will this be a good thing? I don't know. All I know is I'm happy that Bitcoin is around. It's a thing. It's really healthy. The network is strong, because if we didn't have Bitcoin at this point, I think we would all be in a way worse position right now. So things are, you know, getting excited. Maybe this is the point of the movie. We're like, all right, you know, we're finally going to get some action. Does this mean the Bitcoin price is going to go up? Who knows, man? Just keep stacking, get some wild sats. Like, this is the signal here. It is Bitcoin. It will always be Bitcoin. You need to have more Bitcoin today than yesterday.
Yeah, that's an excellent take. I actually had never considered that people would get into mining, but like I say every show, I think that what's really going to push hyper Bitcoinization and people actually taking the orange pill is having something catastrophic like the ramifications of a CBDC be implemented in day-to-day life. And so, it sounds crazy because it sounds so inconvenient. Like it's so much better to just, go on an app and buy some Bitcoin. But what happens when the government restricts you from doing that? You have to find other alternatives. And what happens when you don't know anybody who sells Bitcoin? There's nobody in your immediate friend group because you've all just been hypnotized by the government into thinking, oh, I'm just going to buy my fiat. I'm just going to use my central bank digital currency. So when they stop you from spending that money, what are you going to do? Who are you going to turn to? You set up a miner and you go to companies like yours and you start to figure it out and figure out how to survive in this new day and age. On one hand, it's terrifying because nobody wants to live in that world, but the reality is that we're already here, right? Fiat has already taken up all of our time and energy. And so it's just a matter of time before it's implemented on a global digital scale that it makes people wake up and realize that it's time to get it together and buy some Bitcoin, take it into self-custody.
Yes, if you're European, get it together and buy some Bitcoin. All right, guys, we got a jam-packed show for you guys today. So I found an interesting tweet come out from Unusual Whales, and obviously we always talk about the money printer inflation. The data might be worse than you even thought. This is why you need Bitcoin. And then kind of a continuation of yesterday's show. We got some new information coming out of the Samourai wallet devs, and it's not good, guys. As I was telling you yesterday, I was hopeful that we'd get some new news coming out. It's worse than we could even imagine. Of course, we're going to talk with Kent here. He just got back from Bitcoin Alaska. He's going to give us a little synopsis of what his presentation was, and we're going to give it to you guys live on our show here. And I don't know about later today, but in a couple of days. Anyways, I do want to remind you to smash the like button, of course. Hit the like button. Comment on this video. Are we seeing things? Do you think there's a tectonic shift happening? While everyone's distracted by all the crazy stuff on Twitter. And of course, hit the subscribe button, guys. We're giving you the best content. We're giving you the most content. Anyways, I want to give a shout out to our boys over at Bitcoin Well. Go to bitcoinwell.com/simplybtc. The reason we love these guys is because they do Bitcoin the right way. When you send them their fiat, they send you the Bitcoin directly into your cold storage. They have never lost a sat. They will never lose a sat because they never hold your Bitcoin. This is the best way to make sure that you can usher in these generational sats. And of course, when you sign up, scan the QR code, use the promo code SimplyBTC, you get 3 chances to win 1 million sats. And every time you buy and refer people, you get more chances to win 1 million sats. It's literally free money, guys. Go sign up, buy Bitcoin at Bitcoin Well. We love them. Anyways, let's get into the numbers.
I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stamp Seed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today.
All right, guys, we are back. Of course, we're going to go over some numbers. I'm only going to hit the big ones. You guys don't care about anything else. As much as you say you don't care about the price, you only care about the price, all right? So the current Bitcoin price is $109,440. Guys, it looks like We're on the verge of breaking out. I don't know. I'm not the biggest chart boy here, but you guys can fact check me, but I'm seeing a bull flag breakout here. You know, you guys can Google what that means. It's bullish. That's all you need to know. We are a negative 2.3 decline from all-time high, and the current block height is 904,781. You guys can check the other numbers. We're just getting to the big ones. All right. So this is pretty interesting here. We've been talking about, actually, maybe I start with this chart here. You guys all know this chart. We constantly bring this up on the show. This is the M2 US money supply. And, you know, it's been, for the audio listeners, it's been a steady climb, very steady climb, always up and to the right. And then something very interesting happened around the year of 2020, where the M2 money supply expanded from 15 trillion or $15.4 trillion to a whopping 21.8 trillion. It dipped a little bit around 2023, and now we are back up to $21.9 trillion. That's the money expanding. It sounds to me like the money supply has expanded about 50% in that time. Well, we're starting to get some new data coming out that, yes, your purchasing power has also declined. As they expand the money supply, you get inflation. That means you get poorer. In layman terms, that means you get poorer. Your dollar doesn't go as far as it used to. Now, I know you guys, I wish I brought this up. I just thought about this when I was talking about this. But in 2020, you know, when we all got stimulus checks, it was what, $1,400? If you're like me, you took that $1,400 and you bought Bitcoin. And I think the last number I checked, it was like $12,000 or $14,000. So you escaped the purchasing power decimation that everyone else didn't if you followed that. And you took that $1,400, you basically 10x'd your purchasing power if you bought Bitcoin with that money. Well, we got an interesting data point coming out of the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. And this is what we constantly try to get across to you guys. Many people ask, why do I need Bitcoin? Well, it's simple. You don't want to get poor. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's a don't get poor slowly scheme. And now even their data is telling us, hey, yeah, you guys got a lot poorer since 2020. So here's a tweet. A $100,000 salary in January of 2020 has the same buying power as $124,353 in April 2025. So in 5 years, you've basically lost 25% of your purchasing power, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now, you guys know my take on all of this stuff. I can venture to guess that this data is worse. If this is the number that they're giving us, then I'm guessing it is worse than they're telling us. But anyways, we're going to take it on the surface here. If you haven't saved in Bitcoin, not only did you lose, you know, the 10x gains of saving in Bitcoin, but your dollars just got 25% less expensive. That means when you go to the grocery store, you can buy 25% less of what you were buying. That's why your chips and your cookies and your soda and whatever you're eating out there, your seed oils, are getting more and more expensive, and your grocery store haul is getting smaller and smaller because they're expanding the money supply. It means you are getting poorer in real terms. And they're able to do this because no one understands how inflation works. And this is one of the driving things that Bitcoiners constantly talk about. I know if you're newer to Bitcoin, or maybe just a normie, you kind of like, your eyes glaze over. You're like, I don't really care about this. But you do care about the fact that when you go to the grocery store, your dollar doesn't go as far as it used to. So I found that very interesting, kind of connecting this with the first story. You know, a lot of things have happened in the last 5 years, and I'm not a trust the plan MAGA guy. I think Trump is hilarious. If there's a man that could fundamentally change the course of American politics, obviously it's Trump, and maybe we are going into a golden era. I don't know. I'm kind of skeptical about this, because as we've seen, he's been expanding the money supply at an extraordinary rate here. So don't just trust the leaders to change your life. You need to take some sovereignty, some autonomy here. You need to start saving in Bitcoin. If this is the data, again, if this is the data they're showing you, it's probably a lot worse. We all know that they manipulate the CPI. The inflation rates aren't real that they give us. So I'm going to say it's probably worse than 25% of purchasing power that you've lost. But I still think it's absolutely insane that they're throwing this out here and like, oh, hey, we don't know what happened. But, you know, your 100K in 2020, Yeah, you need 125K to buy the same amount of stuff, and you're just like, ouch. Okay, so it is accelerating. Anyways, Ken, I'm gonna pass it over to you before we get Sophie's take, because I already know her take. She's like, I like to buy things, and things are more expensive. So, Ken, what's your thoughts seeing this official, quote unquote, official number coming out of the U.S. government?
Oh man, so my thought, Opti, is less a thought and more a question. Like, at what point do the American people wake up and understand what's going on? And to me, I mean, I know the greatest thing that causes change is pain, and it's clear that there's pain out there right now, but is it enough? Is it enough to actually look up and break this spell? Because that's what it seems like to me. I think that Bitcoin is this like spell breaker, and the U.S. public right now is enchanted by fiat. We talked about this last time I was on, how there's this occult imagery that's on the dollar, but it does seem the more I study and look at this, like the people are just enchanted. To break people and to get them to even study Bitcoin, you hit this like visceral reaction with so many people, and it's just so emotionally charged at this point to even talk Bitcoin. And it's like, hey, I'm trying to help you, and like, no, don't help me. Like, I've got Stockholm syndrome. Like, put me back in the cell, please. It's just crazy that there's so much pain out there, and people are still so reactionarily negative towards Bitcoin when it's the only thing that's going to save them. So I'm hopeful that these sort of statistics like start to break through people's mental predispositions, and we get on Team Orange sooner than later. But at the end of the day, nobody likes to see their purchasing power disappear in this way. I mean, 24% or 25% change in your purchasing power means that, all things being equal, you needed to work that much more. I mean, that's just a crazy hamster wheel life, and Bitcoin lets us get off of that hamster wheel. And I just think if you're not saving Bitcoin, then what are you doing?
Yeah. And don't forget the taxes, all those free days that you have to be working just to get nothing back in return.
True.
But that's 100% right, Ken. And I had mentioned this before. Sometimes it really does take the water in the pot to just get boiling hot for people to finally jump out. And I know that we're all a little bit mad at Trump right now, but just hear me out. That man is solely responsible for making the price of Bitcoin go up, because the more money he prints, the worse life gets for the average American, the higher the price of Bitcoin goes up. And guess what? That means that your friends and family are going to text you, and they're going to say, how's that Bitcoin thing going for you? You must be super up. You think that we could like meet up so that you can talk to me about how to take my Bitcoin into what was that thing that you were telling me about? How do I buy it on Coinbase? It starts getting the wheels turning. So, yes, I love buying things, and right now buying things is really hard. And while a lot of people won't care about buying groceries, because let's be honest, you're all Uber eating, it's also going to be the catalyst. It's going to be the thing that makes you take your finances seriously and ask yourself the question, what is money? Why am I working so hard without getting anything in return? Why can't I buy a house right now? Nico sent me this graphic the other day where in 1985, how do I do that? Wait, hold on. I'm like on Facebook Marketplace.
Keep going.
Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. So he sent me this screenshot where buying a home in 1985 used to cost, the medium home price used to be $83,000, and your annual income used to be $23,000. I don't think people can survive like more than 6 months on that anymore. And now the price of a home the median price of a home at that is $468,000. And let's be real, that's not even like really real, especially if you live somewhere like Miami. Like you need to be making a lot more than $75,000.
Yeah, I don't think you can get a shitty house in Miami for $468K.
No, you really can't.
But what's the other number is what, 74.5K for
household income.
Yeah.
That means 2 people, okay?
So it looks like, all right, quick math. Someone fact check me on this in the, I'm bad with math here. But for the boomers, it was what, about 4 times your salary to buy a house. And now it's, what's that? I don't know, 6?
3 times?
No, it's more than that.
No, from 23 to 74?
No, but this number, the income to the house price.
Oh, that's like
It's
6
more.
times.
It's more
It's like 6
expensive.
times,
It's
yeah.
more expensive. That's all you need to know. Yeah, 100%. It's pretty wild what's going on. And really, I've been seeing. Actually, I saw this tweet. And the trolling was like, when baby boomers tell you just need to work harder, and you're like, that's not what's going on. I think we're working harder than ever. It's just our money's broken, so our money doesn't go as far. Now, Kent and Sophie brought up an interesting point, because I do have a personal heuristic here. And I've said this on the show already. Like, one of my friends who's been a skeptic of Bitcoin for as long as I've been in Bitcoin, he's like one of my oldest friends, and he knows I got into Bitcoin. I've been trying to shill Bitcoin to him for years, literally years. I at my first early shows, I was like getting angry at him. I'm like, how do you not see what's going on? And then after a while, I stopped kind of even talking about Bitcoin. He literally called me up like 2 weeks ago, and he's telling me, like, back home, he's like, man, everything's more expensive. Businesses are going down. Rent is more expensive. And he's like, I got some stocks, but they're not really performing. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. Like I feel your pain, bro. And then he's like, so how's the Bitcoin thing doing? I'm like, we're at 100K. Like we're doing pretty good. And so essentially what I'm saying is he's finally feeling the pain. And as Kent was saying, like, what will get us to the point where people will wake up? I don't think it's going to be statistics per se, but the statistics are confirming what they're feeling. And it's really the pain that wakes people up. Like, I had to feel pain to wake up to Bitcoin. I'm sure Kent had to as well. Soph had to deal with Nico. That's a lot of pain. So, of course, that's how she woke up to Bitcoin. And now we're starting to see that, like, the pain, it's unavoidable here. People are struggling. And it's one of those moments where I know we like to troll a lot, and we say that, like, have fun staying poor meme or whatever meme. But right now is the time where I think more people are going to be open to the Bitcoin idea, because their life is getting more expensive, because groceries are getting more expensive, because rent or even buying a house is probably unattainable for most people. Like, now is the time to kind of check in on your friends and be like, hey, how are you doing? You're healthy, you're happy, you're prosperous. And you're like, oh, hey, how's life? And they're like, it sucks. And you're like, well, maybe you want to try Bitcoin now. Maybe now's the time. I've been saying this for years on the show. The best way to lead is just be an example of that. And I think all of us Bitcoiners that have been on, our personal quote, Bitcoin standard for a few years, I find all my friends to be doing very well right now. My fiat normie friends, they're kind of struggling. Like, this is how you market Bitcoin, is by being what it means to be a Bitcoiner.
What's crazy is that my normie friends don't even know that they're struggling. Like, they're struggling, but they don't know why. And they don't know, like, where it's coming from. And they just kind of, like, it's so normalized that they can't even fathom that it's because the money is broken. And when you bring it up to them, they think that you're crazy. But when you really just, like, logically put it on paper, what is the thing that affords you to do things that make you happy? Money. If that is if you're making money and it's somehow not enough, there's an issue there. And this is something that Nico always brings up. Over time, supposedly the amount of technology that there is in the world, like, it's supposed to increase productivity. Why is it that productivity has increased more than ever? And I know that the boomers love to call our generation lazy or whatever, but why is it that productivity has increased, but our actual wages have decreased? And once you figure that out, you figure out that Bitcoin is the solution here. You really got to get yourself some.
It takes some pain, guys. It takes some pain. Unfortunately, there is no easy way.
A dose of depression.
yeah. Well, you need to take the point. You need to take the medicine, or a little bit of the poison to get the medicine. I forget what the saying is, but you guys know the deal. Look,
there is no spoonful of sugar.
Mary
Poppins
exactly.
is a lie.
Exactly. Like, as much as I wish this could be easy for everyone, It's not easy. Actually, you guys know I've been training with Sal. I trained with him this morning, the unofficial official trainer of Simply Bitcoin, and we were talking about like orange pilling, and it was just funny. It's like, man, I really wish there was an easy way to do this, but there just is no easy way, and people need to embrace the suck. It's kind of like going to the gym. You don't want to go to the gym, but once you start doing it, you're like, okay, that wasn't that bad. Like, there's just no easy way to do this, guys. I really wish there was, but you need to take that first step and start saving in Bitcoin. Anything, 10, 20, 30, 40, $50, whatever you got, you need to take that first step. Did you want to jump in, Ken? Were you breathing, or was that a sigh?
That was just a sigh, man. I'm running on a little sleep, having taken a red eye to get back from Alaska.
All right, well, I get it. We'll rip right through the news, and we'll get you excited again talking about Bitcoin Alaska. Please. All right, guys, let's get into the news again. This might be a little bit of a downer for a lot of the privacy advocates out there, but again,
you just said this was going to get exciting.
The culture exciting for Kent when he talks about what he was doing a lot. All right, anyways, we're moving on.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Unlock the liquidity in your Bitcoin without having to sell your Bitcoin. They've issued $9 billion in loans to over 10,000 customers since 2018. I absolutely love these guys. Not only do I have an account with them, but I also have a loan. And what I love about them is that there are no monthly payments, and you could pay back the loan at any time. As soon as you send your Bitcoin as collateral, you'll have cash in your account within 24 hours. Over 1,000 five-star customer reviews, and they've never lost a single dollar or sat of customer money. Go to learn.ledin.io/simply today, and you'll get 0.25% off your first loan. I want to give a shout out to our partner, sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money. It's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store. I want to give a shout out to our partner, Cold Card. If you're serious about self-custody, Cold Card is the best Bitcoin hardware wallet. There is no second best. The Cold Card Q is the ultimate air-gapped Bitcoin signing device, complete with a full keyboard, large screen, camera, NFC support, and much more. Do you prefer something sleeker? The MK4 is trusted by hardcore Bitcoiners around the world. Both are built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners, secure and open source. Simply Bitcoin viewers get 5% off with promo code SIMPLY. Take self-custody of your Bitcoin today with Cold Card.
All right, guys. So I wanted to bring this news story today because I was covering the Tornado Cash story yesterday, and it's kind of a continuation of this theme. Everyone knows here on the show the infamous Nico crash out after the Samourai wallet devs got arrested. Well, we got a new update coming out from The Rage, aka Lola Leets' publication. And again, it's not good. And yesterday I was kind of hopeful that this would change. Obviously, it still has to go through the court. So maybe we get some good news coming out of this, but the implications are not good here. It's not a very upbeat story here. So again, I'm over at The Rage. This is therage.co. And if you are watching the show, you can see the headline. It goes, "New Samourai indictment paints anonymity as a crime." The new Samourai wallet indictment paints the developers of having built a privacy service for the sole purpose of serving criminals. I repeat, they created a privacy service for the sole purpose of serving criminals. It's going backwards. Like I thought we were, kind of moving ahead, but it doesn't seem like the courts in New York are getting the hint here. So anyways, the Southern District of New York, SDNY, has filed a superseding indictment against Samourai wallet developers Keon Rodriguez and William Hill. The indictment expands the charge timeline by 2 months from February 2024 to April 2024, adding $150 million to the alleged criminal proceeds laundered, now totaling $250 million. Now they just made it even worse. Not looking good, to be honest. The new indictment additionally adds, quote, drug trafficking to the description of allegedly laundered funds, meaning that it may be reasonable to assume that the U.S. government has newly identified Bitcoin allegedly obtained through the sale of illegal substances that pass through Samourai wallet service. The new indictment additionally removes all but one mention of, quote, unlicensed money transmission, including all references to 18 USC 1960, governing federal money service businesses licensing requirements in line with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche's April memo. The new indictment yet continues to charge the developers under count 2 with conspiracy to operate an unlicensed money transmitting business, despite the fact that many other jurisdictions have been dropping cases based on the Blanche memo, as well as regulatory uncertainty. So it seems like they're expanding the case. They're basically making, privacy a crime here, saying that if you create a software that criminals use, you're basically responsible for them, and you need a money transmitting license. I don't know. It sounds like maybe we should be doing that around the U.S. dollar. Like, that's the significations of the dollar. The criminals use the dollar.
I'm confused, Opti. Why is it so now Bitcoin is considered a currency? I'm confused.
Yeah,
so,
hot take.
So does that mean that we don't have to pay capital gains? I mean, I don't know. Because if that's the case, then you can't have it both ways, folks, at the government.
Well, yes, they can. They're the government. You got to trust the government.
And that's exactly why you have to opt out. Because once you do, there's nothing that they can do to do anything about this. Honestly.
Yeah, it does start to look like unfettered power here, and obviously the hypocrisies that you and the double speak coming out of them. Now, I do want to read Lola Leeds' tweet real quick, because, of course, she's the one behind this, and she kind of points out the inaccuracies here and basically the hypocrisy. So Lola Leeds tweets, the new Samourai wallet indictment truly is a phenomenally disingenuous piece of garbage, likely filed to reflect that the government is no longer pursuing federal licensing violations. The new indictment removes all references to, quote, unlicensed except one. SDNY seems to have taken the opportunity to make their indictment even more confusing to the judge. Entire paragraphs are moved around, language has changed, and most importantly, the new indictment seems to make zero distinction between Samourai Wallet, the entity, and Samourai Wallet, the software. Take these two paragraphs, for example, the first from the original indictment and the second from the new one. Quote, the cryptocurrency is cut down and leftover funds are, quote, placed in a separate address and provided back to the Samourai user. And here's the new one. Samourai cut down the cryptocurrency into correct sizes for a chosen pool, and Samourai returned back to the user any leftover funds from this transaction that were too small to enter the whirlpool by replacing them in a separate address. So instead of correcting their technical inaccuracies, SDNY chose to double down on them. In my opinion, this means that the prosecutors either somehow managed to get even more stupid over the past 1.5 years, or that SDNY is intentionally attempting to mislead the judge on how the Samourai Wallet software worked, making it look like the developers had more control over funds than they did in reality. They call this, quote, justice, my guys. Guys, again, as I was saying yesterday, I was hopeful that with the Tornado Cash case kind of being thrown out of the OFAC and Coin Center doing some good work, that hopefully the Tornado Cash guys, would be seemingly found innocent of their quote unquote crimes here.
Well, maybe this is why they're doubling down.
It could be. And as I said, hopefully that would set a precedent for the Samourai Wallet guys, because of course, you maxis in the chat, waiting to throw tomatoes at me. It's like, it's an Ethereum mixer, dude. Who cares? Well, that was the precedent for arresting the Samourai Wallet guys. And now seemingly trying to make privacy illegal on Bitcoin. So there's still a lot of work to do here. This is not looking that good, to be honest. Hopefully the judge can see through all of the BS coming out of SDNY. Again, you know, free the Samourai wallet devs. Again, shouts out to Lola Leets and The Rage. They're doing incredible work. I highly recommend you follow them.
My hot take is, you know, privacy to transact is privacy to transact. So whether it's being done in Ethereum, whatever, that's your choice. If you want to, you know, transact in whatever coin like that, that's on you, honestly. But it's the fact that there is this entity that's trying to control what it is that you're trading. And if you think that it won't happen to you, think again, because Bitcoin is way more powerful than any of these other coins, as we know. And so eventually it's going to come back around and slap to us. They're just trying to set a precedent. And if they can set a precedent with Ethereum or whatever other shitcoin, it's going to come back for you. Guaranteed.
Hold on.
Yeah, listen. That's called
Sophie spitting
motherfucking
bars. Once she's not in the host seat and she can get a little more loose here, and you know, that's when Soph shines and starts spitting some bars here.
Guys, bear with me. It's going to be a long week.
All right, Kent, what's your thoughts on this? I'm not sure if you've been following along on the Samourai wallet case, but it was one of the big stories that came out last year. Again, you know, here at Simply, we tried to stay neutral politically until the Samourai wallet case came out. And then, you know, Nika crashed out and went full MAGA on us. So, you know, I'm a little more skeptical here, but this is not looking good for the Samourai wallet devs. I really hope that something changes here, or rather, maybe the judge realizes what the, SDNY is doing, because one, they're inaccurate. Two, they're trying to paint a picture that isn't true. And three, we all know, you know, the biggest criminals use fiat. So are they going to shut down the banks? Like, what are we talking about here? Let's not have double standards in regards to, you know, dollars and Bitcoin. But of course, they live on double standards. Anyways, I'll start ranting. Kent, what's your thoughts reading this?
Well, just a question. What's the Federal Reserve's address?
Exactly.
I've just pointed out the connection here, right? So the Southern District of New York, I have been tracking this one pretty closely because I do care about privacy and the right to transact. I think it's a fundamental right. And I would actually love to see the Bitcoin community rally around it and potentially, or push to actually get it introduced into our Bill of Rights as citizens. You know, the right to transact could not be even conceived of when our founding fathers put together the Constitution, right? Like, it was impossible to think, oh, I hand a bill, or they didn't even have bills, right? They were all coins at that point in time, right? And so they're handing over these coins. Like, how could you even envision that somebody could get in between you and the ability to transact when the Constitution was put together? But it's a substrate on which all of our other freedoms are based, right? Like, you can't actually go protest unless you can buy a bus ticket. Well, if you can't have the right to transact, how do you buy a bus ticket to get to the protest? Or how do you go to the store and buy your gun if you can't actually transact to buy it? So I think we need to get behind the right to transact as a fundamental part of our freedoms as American citizens. And until that's done, this is just one of those encroachments on that. And to me, this case is just stupid. It's a blatant power grab by the Southern District of New York. The federal prosecutors have even said, like, you know, with the Blanche memo, that this really doesn't have any legs. And so I'm hoping just truth prevails. Like, the biggest risk to me is that we as a Bitcoin community don't do enough to support the Samourai wallet devs so that they can continue their defense and the lawyers can get paid, so that we can drive this all the way to the Supreme Court if that's what we have to do to get this cleared. Because it just seems absolutely asinine that there's any legs to this, because the Blanche memos pulled the rug out from the legal precedent here. Yep. So this is freedom of speech stuff, like where they wrote the code and then people are using it. I mean, it's a tool. How you use the tool is totally dependent on the end user, which is why we have the rights to guns, which was why we have the rights to knives, because you can cut a cake or you can cut a person with it, but it's how you choose to use it that matters. It's not the tool itself. So this is just a totally stupid abuse and waste of power, but it makes sense if it's coming from the Southern District of New York, where the seat of the money printer power is in the US, that they're trying to maintain as much control as they can for as long as they can. So I understand the incentives here. It's not surprising to see it happen, but it's still stupid.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that's definitely the signal where it's coming from. We all know New York has not been very friendly to Bitcoin forever. Obviously, it's not like this is not a good thing for, the Samourai wallet devs themselves. But as Kent was saying, the incentives are very clear. And as we've been covering along on this show for years now, we know that there is a very coordinated attack on Bitcoin. We know why they don't want Bitcoin to get proliferated. We know why they don't want privacy to be on chain. And really, if you want to take a more nefarious look at this, it is kind of interesting now that the U.S. is going more pro-Bitcoin, and then it's also getting attacked for its privacy. As my boy Mark Goodwin's been saying, we as Bitcoiners have to be very vigilant here, because we could be building ourselves, this beautiful orange cage here. We all know Bitcoin is a transparent ledger here. So we got to make sure that privacy is a right, that people can use Bitcoin privately, that we don't have to expose our holdings because some guy with a suit tells us to. We have two forks in the road here. And as a Bitcoiner, as a sovereignty maxi, as a node runner, these precedents that we're seeing come out of SDNY are not good. I'm really hopeful for the Samourai wallet devs. And yes, as Kent was saying, as a community, we got to do what we can to not only highlight what's going on, but at times, guys, we might have to pull out some sats and help, fund this case, because this is a very big case. And it seems like it kind of has been skirted under the rug. Like, there hasn't really been that much fanfare around it after it initially came out. So, of course, we'll see what happens when the court date gets closer and we get a little more clarity on what's actually going to happen. But it's not looking good, guys. They are actively attacking Bitcoin and Bitcoiners, and it should kind of piss you off is all I'm saying. That's all I'm kind of saying. This is why I'm bringing this up to light. Anyways, we'll get off some buzzkill topics here. Kent just got back from Alaska, hanging out with Rustin in the flesh, and you had an interesting talk here. So you're going to do a recap about that, and of course, we'll talk some SAS mining. Maybe you want to get some wild sats. Now, maybe all of this talk is making you feel a little uncomfortable, and you're like, maybe I should get some Bitcoin not from an exchange? Yeah, you probably should. Okay, let's get into the conversation.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Casa. Casa makes self-custody easy and secure. As a Bitcoiner, I care about holding my own private keys, but multi-sig can sometimes get tricky. Casa nails it with a multi-key security. So even if one key gets lost or stolen, your Bitcoin stays safe. And you don't give up custody, meaning no one could access your Bitcoin but you. No seed phrase anxiety, no single point of failure. I've been telling my friends and family about Casa for years. Their UX and UI on their app is by far the best in the industry. Inheritance planning is built in, and they even offer Casa for Business if you're thinking about a Bitcoin treasury. Hit up casa.io today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 10% off Casa Standard or Casa Premium. Head over to casa.io.
All righty then, Kent. We'll get you awake now. First of all, I think let's just start with how was Bitcoin Alaska. Obviously, we weren't there, but Rustin was there. It looked like a good time. Actually, some interesting. I think there was a direct connection between Bitcoin Alaska and an interesting news story. Apparently, I haven't fully looked into it, but an Alaskan sovereign wealth fund is now looking into Bitcoin. So It looks like these conferences actually do have an effect, a real life effect versus just against your, Bitcoin wallets here. So, Kent, how was your time in Alaska?
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, if you like glaciers and mountains and wildlife, salmon, halibut, these sorts of things like king crab, I would definitely recommend it. So Juneau is where Bitcoin Alaska was. Juneau's the capital of Alaska. Smallish city, 40,000 people, and it's tucked at the base of a fjord where cruise ships come in for these like classic trips. And the organizers did schedule one of those for us. It's not the cruise, but a trip up the fjord to go see whales and glaciers, waterfalls, all these things I'm talking about. It was incredible, very well done, and it was chosen intentionally to be in Juneau. And shout out to the organizers for doing an amazing job with it. I think that it's going to be one of those conferences that just gets plugged into the circuit in a way that is going to lead a lot of people to Alaska and just realizing like how amazing that state is. I mean, I had no idea, but the state of Texas easily fits within the size of Alaska. Like Alaska's 2 times the size of Texas, and I think us lower 48ers think that Texas is massive. And it is, but Alaska just dwarfs everything on the continental lower 48. Anyhow, so amazing event. Really loved it. Loved how they got involved. Like there was a congressman there, Nick Begich, and I may have pronounced his name incorrectly. But the state controller was there as well. So it was clearly intended to orange pill the Alaskan legislators. And it sounds like it's already making inroads. I hadn't heard that yet, but that's amazing, Opti.
Yeah, 100% here. I'll pull it up real quick. So did you want to chime in here? Or?
Yeah, actually, I had a question. So I went to Iceland a million years ago, and that was kind of at the start of Nico and I's Bitcoin journey. And I had always wondered, like, in these cold places, is it easier to mine? Like, is there a huge mining opportunity in Alaska? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, no, thank you for touching on that. There absolutely is. So there's a lot of underutilized hydropower, so a lot of clean electricity there. The problem is, and part of why the conference was there was to influence and help the legislator act to loosen up some of the regulations around it. Like, for instance, one of the most surprising things, there was a panel that was specifically on legislative restraints. And because there's such a big gold mining focus there, it's not actually totally clear if the regulations that apply to gold mining apply to Bitcoin mining, right? So like that level of confusion, the taxes that would apply to gold mining, could they apply to Bitcoin mining? Don't know. But the issue is that there's a lot of regulatory red tape that needs to be worked through for Bitcoin miners to get access to that electricity. And part of the conference was showing like, hey, there's a lot of economic potential here, which of course there is, but the legislators need to figure out how to make the access to that power that's underutilized more accessible. And so I think this conference is definitely going to break that ice and move that conversation forward in a pretty massive way. Because I mean, state legislators are like any politicians anywhere. They want votes, and to get votes, you need to create jobs and to create tax revenue for the state, right? To continue to fund those government services. So that's the circle of life, and we're able to do that with mining, create the jobs and the tax revenue that help the politicians.
Wow.
Yeah.
That connection is fascinating. Whether, the same regulations that apply to gold also apply to Bitcoin. And it makes me feel like there's going to be this renaissance in the country. Like, how people used to go out west to mine gold. Maybe now people go to Alaska and go to all these different parts of the country to mine Bitcoin, and to have jobs in mining and to have a future in this industry. So I think that that's absolutely fascinating.
Totally. All right. So Ken, here's a tweet. And then I really want to pivot into what did you talk about up there? Cause let's do a little recap of your speech. But before we do that, Pete Rizzo tweeted this morning, $83 billion Alaska Sovereign Wealth Fund is exploring buying Bitcoin, quote, saying, "We see where Bitcoin is going in 5 years. Let's see.
There's that hopium.
Always
There's
the hopium.
that Simply Bitcoin
Yeah.
hopium.
And this apparently is the Alaska Permanent Fund. So interesting developments. What, you just got back? It seems like it might have made some waves out there. So I guess the Alaska Bitcoin Conference has some pull here. There's some gravitas at this conference. Anyways, Kent, you wanted to talk about, recap your talk from Bitcoin Alaska. So for the people, you give them a tease because we are going to put it up on our channel. Just maybe give them a little TLDR. What was your speech about? Why should people be interested? And really, I think more so, why are you interested in it? Why did you want to give this talk?
Oh, so I'm not gonna lie. I am a CEO and founder of a mining as a service business, right? So finding access to low cost energy is part of my job, and thought there might be some opportunity there. Also just the ability to network and get to know more of the community. We are a global product, so we have clients from all over the planet that are utilizing our data centers in Wisconsin, Paraguay, Norway right now, possibly Ethiopia in the future. We're doing some evaluation there. But at the end of the day, I came there with a very specific intention to. I've had all these circulating ideas for a long time, and one of the thesis that I've developed is that there's not been many companies that have, back up a sec. There was a massive split in the timeline that occurred, and it's not been explored enough. I don't think our community has, because our community is largely from after the timeline split. So 2009 to 2012, if you were running Bitcoin software, you were mining. There was no separation to that experience, and that's why the early Bitcoiners all were miners, and that's how they got the majority of their Bitcoin. 2012 is when Coinbase opened its door, and that customer experience of ease to go and buy it transformed everything. At least that's my thesis. Now, maybe the node software split at that point in time, but regardless, the community split in two. And there's miners on one side, and there's users and devs on the other side of that split. And you can see this today. If you go to a mining conference, there's very few Bitcoiners there. If you go to a Bitcoin conference, there's very few miners there. These two worlds just don't collide very much. And that's led to some unintentional consequences, specifically because we've given up that aspect of the network to a large degree. It's now fiat hashers that dominate the network. And you can see this in publicly traded miners. They have a fiduciary responsibility to return dollars to their investors. So as a result, there's a misalignment of incentives, and the mining centralization issues are all downstream of this. So these unintended consequences have ramifications. You could even say the op-return debate that we've had over the last couple of months is downstream of this split in the Bitcoin acquisition timeline. And so I went to Alaska to talk about this, to get it out there, to breach the awareness and say, look, Bitcoiners must mine. And so I started the presentation by defining what a Bitcoiner is. And I think I've got a very simple definition. I wish the community would gel around this definition, but it's up for debate, and I know it is. But to me, a Bitcoiner is anybody that's decided to save Bitcoin instead of fiat. Save Bitcoin is the key. And when you do that, you shift something in your head, because now you're thinking longer term, and you're no longer as tied to the price volatility of the dollar and inflation. You just want to keep stacking more and more sats, right? And you quit you start to get yourself off the hamster wheel that fiat creates for us. So Bitcoiners are what save Bitcoin instead of fiat. Now, talking about the reasons why Bitcoiners must mine, I just talked through kind of the moral reasons. It's the centralization aspects, this misalignment of incentives, because we've seeded the network and the block creation to people that are there using Bitcoin as a proxy to acquire dollars instead of there to acquire Bitcoin. But the simple truth is that Bitcoin mining is a 0-to-1 invention. It is the only way to generate new Bitcoin, and it allows all of us to take a piece of the money printer and decentralize it. As long as we follow the rules of the Bitcoin network, anybody can participate in generating the money. And that's radical. We talk about how radical it is to have decentralized money and uncensorable transactions, and that's a 0-to-1 innovation right there. But we're not talking about the 0-to-1 innovation of all of us being able to have access to money creation itself. And so when we actually apply an economic lens to it, it's cheaper to mine on a daily basis than it is to buy. So you've got an economic reason to acquire sats through mining, because when you do that, you get more sats for your dollar. Two, the moral reason, we've already talked about that a little bit. We're going to help to weed out these centralization issues and strengthen the social layer of the Bitcoin network. Because by strengthening the social layer of the Bitcoin network, nobody has more skin in the game than a Bitcoin miner. And I say that specifically because it's somebody that's looking to acquire Bitcoin instead of fiat. I can tell you, we've got a wonderful and passionate community of clients, and they're extremely passionate about Bitcoin because they're using mining as a tool to get their Bitcoin. The third reason is I think we have an economic driver, or not economic, a marketplace driver that's going to drive us to mining, and sooner rather than later force us to earn instead of buy. What am I talking about? Global M2 right now stands at about $95 trillion. If you go look at the number of Bitcoin on exchange, it's something like 2.2 million, maybe 2.4 million. But regardless, if you price it at 110K, that's under $300 billion worth of value. It's this big compared to something that's massive, right? In fact, so massive, if you do the math, 360,000 times as massive. So how much of that capital, how much of that free floating fiat needs to come into Bitcoin before it all disappears from exchanges? You know, we're going to hoard the good money and we're going to sell the bad. And as we hoard the good money, it's going to disappear off exchanges. And you can see this directionally. This is the first cycle where liquidity is drying up as the price is going up. And I think that continues. And so if you get to the point and you think that logically through where there's no Bitcoin to buy, well, guess what? You got to earn it. And if you're going to earn it, how are you going to earn it? Well, you might price your goods and services to try to tempt that Bitcoin out of the cupboards and out to purchase your goods and services. Or the easier way would be to mine it through a service like what we're creating here at Saz Mining.
Yeah, perfect segue, because I was going to ask a question. You know, if you're hearing this pitch from Kent, you're probably going to ask yourself one or two things if you're really, a true believer here. And it's like, I want to get into mining Bitcoin. How can I do this? And is it too expensive? Because I had a lot of friends that, in 2018, they instead of stacking sats, they went full mining, and they didn't really consider all of the variables that came into place. And this is exactly what Saz mining kind of solves for people. Is like, you don't have to overcomplicate this. Just go to Saz Mining, and they will solve all the complications for you. So, again, if someone's listening to this, how do they get into this? How is it the easy way to do this, Kent? And, of course, it's a plug for Saz Mining.
Yeah. No, thank you for the opportunity to plug Saz Mining. So here's the thing. I am competing with Coinbase. That's my competition. I want to make this as easy as it was for people to go to Coinbase, because that's the problem. And that's why we had the split in the timeline, is it became easier to go to Coinbase than it was to go buy. So you come onto our website, and just as you would expect to buy any product, you can put it in your shopping cart, right? So here's reviewers. You scroll up a little bit, and you can see where you can shop. I think if you scroll down, I don't know if you've got past the daily cost to mine a Bitcoin. So you can go see our calculator there and how we $50,000, the price of Bitcoin on exchange right now is 109, I think we just saw. So, you're getting more sats for your dollar by mining it. Now, this is the daily cost to mine a Bitcoin. It just looks at your electricity price divided by how many sats you get, because that simple knowledge is not out there in the community right now. And you've got to buy your mining rig to get on the ride, and you get to sell your mining rig when you get off the ride. Now, the price point at which you get on and get off the ride, that's always changing. There's times where you can make money. There's times when you lose money on that. But just trying to get across the very simple daily cost to mine a Bitcoin, that's just electricity price divided by how many sats you get. It's currently 50% off. Of the more than 50% off of the exchange price, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Bit of information is not well enough known in our industry. And I want to get that out there so that the Bitcoiners understand it. So yeah, then you click and you can drill in, you get to shop the mining rigs that we have available. So that's where you can, if you want to talk to somebody, it's there. That's kind of the overarching process there, how it goes. But in essence, you buy a mining rig from us, We have live mining rigs, so we can get them deployed for you within a couple hours, but we also have more efficient mining rigs that we are ordering, shipping, getting deployed. Those take 3 to 4 weeks to get deployed. But once you get that purchase, you'll create an account at the same time. You log into your account. You say how you want to pay for your electricity each month. Most clients are using credit cards. We're very happy. We just established a relationship with Square. We're going to be talking about that a little bit more. We got Apple Pay, Google Pay, Cash App. You can buy with Bitcoin for a discount. We're trying to make this as easy as any sort of Web 2 experience to remove the friction so that ultimately, yes, you're going to pay your mining rate. Yes, you're going to pay your electricity. Those are costs. We make no money there. What we do instead is we align our interests with yours to make sure we have you running and as effective as possible. So our management fee, because that's what we are as a property management company, I've got possession of something that you own, and I've got that. And so if I'm going to do right by you, it's to make it produce as much Bitcoin as it can. So for us, our management fee for the service is 15% of the Bitcoin that are generated, and that's paid out when the pool pays. So what that means is just 15% goes to our wallet, 85% goes to you. These are wild sats generated directly off the network, right? And so that means that you are getting your sats outside of the banking system. You're just absolutely working around it. I think people need to get this through their heads. Like, mining is a 0 to 1 innovation. You are generating Bitcoin. This is the only way you can generate Bitcoin on the planet. And that means by definition, you are outside of the banking system and you are owning a piece of the money printer of the future. So we talked about those tectonic plates, right? Like, everything is sort of liquefying and changing right now, and money is starting to feel funny out there in the economy. But Bitcoin is this place of certainty, and you can participate in that today and do it in a way that doesn't involve the old system at all. You can just, just like Buckminster Fuller talks about, is like, hey, don't fight the existing system, just adopt the new one and you're going to have a better life. And I think that's what we're demonstrating here. Opti, to your point, is, we're just leading by example. And I think Bitcoiners are the future.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And actually, I do kind of want to stress the fact that you can do this with a credit card. I know you guys are Bitcoin maxis. You're like F the fiat system. But I'm having a hard time right now trying to remember anywhere, period, that you can buy Bitcoin with a credit card. All my friends, let's not talk about it. All my friends, their biggest regret was 2018 spending a whole lot of Bitcoin to buy miners at a really expensive price. And they're just like, dude, I'm never going to recoup that Bitcoin ever. And I think, Ken, you haven't said that on the show, so I'm guessing that's a new development, and that's a pretty easy sell as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I can't get approved for credit cards, guys. Like, that's how good of a Bitcoiner I am. But, if you still have a credit card, then I don't know, it's something to consider.
Yeah, no, it hasn't been something that I've pushed because it's taken a lot of work to get a relationship established with Square. But we're really proud of that, and we now can literally accept it. We did have credit cards that we could accept before, but there were limits to that, and it was horrible during Operation Choke Point 2.0 managing that. But at the end of the day, I knew once we were in the market. So we started January 2023 being operational. And it was within a few months, I was like, we have to figure out credit cards. And it's taken 2 years to get to the point where we have a great solution in place. But at the end of the day, people are cycling fiat into a Bitcoin position. And one of the best ways that people want to cycle their fiat is through credit cards. And so, hey, I'm a Bitcoiner through and through. I save as much Bitcoin as I possibly can. But at the end of the day, I'm also listening to the market. And the market wants to use credit cards to pay for their rigs and to pay for their electricity, and good on them. If you're a good manager of capital, you're paying off your credit card every month anyway. Why not get an extra 30 days of price appreciation on the Bitcoin that you mine, right? So it makes sense to me. But yeah, we've got it set up. So yeah, if you like using Apple Pay online, we got you.
Yeah, and also, this is not financial advice, guys. Don't come to me later. Be smart. Don't be like me. Don't debt max here. But hey, be smart about it. But Kent, there was a good question in here. Jonathan asks, are there discounts if someone wants to run multiple rigs like 20?
Yeah, we do custom quotes. So anything under 20 rigs is hard to justify any sort of savings, but we do cost pass through. And unfortunately, some of those costs don't totally scale. So at 20, we say, hey, reach out to us. There's a link on our purchase page where we'll get you a custom quote for it and talk to you. Generally, that turns into more of a conversation. But in general, depending how you pay, we can work some discounts into the quote, because as you can imagine, that's why we have a big discount when we accept Bitcoin or Lightning, is because we do get charged quite a bit for taking credit cards. So we can pass on some greater savings if you're looking at a quote for more than 20 mining rigs.
Yeah, it's almost like there's less friction with Bitcoin than credit card. I mean, I don't know. I got a bias here, but maybe this is something we're seeing play out. Anyways, Kent, thank you so much. And guys, give us some time. We're going to edit Kent's talk. That will be on the Simply Bitcoin channel if you are more interested in this. But Kent, last words. What's the final message you want to leave with the audience before we wrap up today's show?
Final words, just save Bitcoin, people. Save Bitcoin, keep your head down. All we have to do is give ourselves time and space for adoption to occur. And I'm convinced that we're breathing a new reality into existence. Bitcoiners are the first folks to get grounded since we decided to separate our money from the laws of physics with the Nixon shock in 1970. And as we get grounded, we're going to be the people that wind up leading the way for the rest of the population. So I know the mainstream is considering us to be the outcast, but don't worry, that's what leadership looks like, and you guys are the leaders of the future.
Bars, absolute bars. Well, Kent, thank you so much. As you guys know, Kent's becoming our leading mining expert on the show. So if you like what he said, he'll be on, I don't know when, but basically next month we'll have another mining. Actually, Kent, remember the last time we were on, did anyone reach out to with questions? We completely blanked on that today until right now. Didn't we have like an email set up if they have questions? Weren't we going to do like a reoccurring guys? All right. If you have questions on mining, Kent, what's your email? Say it one more time, and guys, we'll kind of go through those. No one emailed you, so apparently there's no questions. But if you do have questions, you can talk to Kent directly.
Yeah, I vaguely recall we were going to do some question answering, but
no one questioned that. We always do this, and no one says anything.
So yeah, but the best place to reach me is on Twitter, folks, at @Halliburton. But my DMs are open. Hit me there with any questions you have. I'll gather those. We'll make sure to funnel them into the next time here to be the mining expert for you guys. But yeah, happy to answer any and all questions. There's a lot around mining, but at the end of the day, it's been overcomplicated. The main reason it's been overcomplicated is because people are trying to get both sats and fiat, and you can't do that. You just have to make the choice that this is for Bitcoin, and once you do that, everything gets easier. So that's my framing and where I go with the conversation.
It's almost
thanks so much.
Almost a life hack, Ken. Just think in Bitcoin, your life gets so much easier.
Just think Bitcoin.
Just simplify it, guys. Just simplify it. All right, Ken, thank you so much for coming on today. Hang out behind the show real quick, because I do want to give Sophie some praise, guys. Shouts out to the beautiful, wonderful internet Sophie. Nico's better half. He literally got mad at me for saying that this morning. He doesn't even know what that means. He's like, what do you mean better half? Sophie, we threw you to the fire. You did your first hook. Guys, Sophie, we're gonna put Sophie to work this week. So you're gonna see more of Sophie, but Sophie, you killed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for having me and not throwing tomatoes in the chat.
Well, they threw tomatoes for sure. No, they didn't say anything. I promise
to keep being funny. Actually, if they throw tomatoes, that's probably a good sign, because it means that I'm saying something important. So
it means they like you. All right, guys. Well, you already know the deal. We go live roughly 12:15 Monday through Friday. Of course, subscribe to Simply Bitcoin's YouTube channel, Rumble channel. We drop the best content. We drop the most content. This is what we do, guys. So we'll see you tomorrow. We will be back for another episode of Simply Bitcoin Live. Peace out, guys.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.